Hey there, Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. And if you are new here, my name is Hannah. I am a Western Practical Astrologer. All right, so in today's video, we are going to be diving into the moon signs. Yes, moon through the signs. And we're going to be exploring the moon signs more based on, how do you feel and attach? And by attach, I mean emotionally attach. So I hope that you are looking forward to this video. Okay, before we do dive in, however, please comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and let me know your moon placement. Where is the moon in your chart? For me, the moon is in Aries, in the 8th house. Okay, the moon signs. Very excited about this one, I gotta say. I'm excited to revisit the moon signs. Now, before we do go further, however, just if you're interested in booking a reading with me, you can visit my website, hannahselsewhere.com. There you can also find my astrology products at my website. You can also find my products over on Etsy too, by the way. And I want to also say thank you so much to my patrons over at Patreon for all of your support. If you are interested in gaining early access to new videos, ad-free, plus PDF guides, behind the scenes content, I mean, there's 40 videos that will be up. Well, 39 technically, but 40 by Monday. Yes, if you're interested in these things, then you can join the Patreon by going to the link below. Plus, if you would like more information about the moon in astrology, more in-depth information, there is an episode over at my podcast, the Cosmic Check-In Podcast. So if you're interested, you can check that out too. All right. So I want to explore just this overview. What is the moon all about? So you can gain a decent understanding or some perspective about the moon. So the moon is so much about how and where you need to feel safe. The moon is about our emotional safety, our emotional security. This is largely about our inner world, okay? Our emotional needs. The moon is linked to our upbringing, our family, our conditioning, and it's also largely about our unconscious. So, what are those unconscious behaviors? And how do you react in the moment on this more subconscious level? See, the moon is so much about who we are underneath it all. The moon is also about our feelings of belonging and emotional attachment. So this leads me on to some information about emotional needs and attachments, the significance of them. So a person's emotional needs explain the feelings or conditions they need in order to feel fulfilled and happy. When their emotional needs are met, they can experience inner harmony and balance. They can feel peaceful. However, when their emotions are not met, so whenever our emotions are not met, we can feel frustrated, we can feel irritated. Dissatisfaction is likely. A person's emotional needs really depends on many factors, such as their upbringing, their values, and their identity. And according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, some basic human emotional needs include attention, security, and a sense of achievement. A person's emotional attachments then refer to feelings of closeness and affection that develop over time within meaningful relationships. Healthy attachment is normal in close connections. Emotional attachments to possessions and our beliefs and so on can also grow, and it is our attachments that help us feel secure and safe. Our emotional needs and our emotional attachments, you see, they go hand in hand, because to attach emotionally is a need within itself. Emotional attachment can create greater love and belonging. So this is really why, folks, it's so important to explore your moon sign through this lens of your emotional needs, your emotional attachments, and by becoming familiar with your moon, you're going to be able to perhaps grasp more clearly things like safety, support, your feelings of belonging, and feeling emotionally secure. So with that, let's now get into the moon signs. Okay, the moon signs. Moon in Aries, first up. Moon in Aries, folks. Some of your emotional needs include being independent and having a strong sense of self. When these needs are met, you feel energetic, motivated, and optimistic. You will passionately, honestly, and directly share your emotions with those you have developed an emotional attachment to. Within your close relationships, you're often affectionate, you're confident, you're also highly sympathetic. You will fight for and defend your loved ones. Oh, yes, you can act as this warrior who stands up for those you love the most. However, if your emotional needs are not met, you can be aggressive. You can be demanding and brash. You might become angry or push to get what you want potentially. And so therefore, considering others and showing vulnerability can help you develop greater emotional connections. Still, if you have moon in Aries, your natural reactions show how sincere you are. And it is unlikely that you hide how you feel. But again, when hurt, so if others hurt you, you can act defensive. And with maturity, you learn to manage your emotions and to also regulate them in a more healthy way. But you will always stand up for what you feel is right. And then some emotional needs of yours also include exercise, sex, and adventures. So I want to say here that the moon is in Aries in my chart, and I very much relate to the exercise as a part of my emotional needs. Exercise for me is just a great way to get my energy out, and I feel calmer. I feel really good whenever I exercise. I feel like I have so much energy and I need to move it through my body. Plus, I just want to throw another thing in here. And this is going to be a theme that we're going to follow for all of the moon signs, right? So there is what is known as the progressed lunar return, right? Well, the secondary progressed lunar return, but we'll just call it progressed lunar return. So that happens around about the time we're 27, 28. So for you, if you've got moon in Aries, By the time you're about 27, 28, you may find that when it comes to things like being impulsive, being reckless, jumping into new situations head first and not thinking them through, these things will lessen a bit. And I think this is when you will really start to mature on a much more emotional level, right? And perhaps this will also, so by that time, this will also usher in this whole new confidence cycle, this whole new leadership cycle for you, Aries moons. Okay, let's now move on to the moon in Taurus. If you have the moon in Taurus, some of your emotional needs include security, both inner and outer, and establishing comforting relationships. When these needs are met, you feel relaxed, supported, and calm. You typically take your time developing an emotional attachment to someone, and when you do, you will intentionally and gradually share your emotions. It's so important that there is this slow and steady process. And if you feel like people are forcing you or pushing you, that's a big no. Within your close relationships, you're often thoughtful, real, supportive. You'll care about the livelihood of your loved ones. However, if your emotional needs are not met, you can be uncompromising, stubborn, stingy, withdrawn. You might refuse to budge or listen to others. Showing compassion and being open to change, of course, can help you develop greater emotional connections. Still, the thing about you, if you have moon in Taurus, is your natural reactions show your need to slow down or to process things on your own time. So feeling overwhelmed or being pushed can really frustrate you, can get to you. You prefer to feel emotionally balanced. And hey, you know what? You can be great at soothing others or even helping others recognize how they can soothe themselves emotionally. And then when we think about the progressed lunar return for you around about the time you're 27, 28, we could see you perhaps recognizing times whenever you are very stuck in your ways. Refusing, right? There could be the whole refusing to budge, refusing to maybe accept a situation, quite stubborn in this way. Yes, perhaps you can identify times whenever you can be too uncompromising, right? So that's sort of like a part of your own emotional maturity as you age. So let's now turn our attention to Moon in Gemini. Moon in Gemini, folks. If you have the Moon in Gemini, some of your emotional needs include being listened to, socializing, and exchanging ideas. When these needs are met, you feel youthful, curious, amused. Once you have developed an emotional attachment to someone, you'll usually communicate your emotions. On the other hand, you can also intellectualize your emotions as you try to make logical sense of them. And within your close relationships, you're often witty, clever, and pretty alert. You'll check in with your loved ones, for example. You'll want to catch up, right? There's always something to catch up on. However, if your emotional needs are not met, you can be restless, impatient, moody, and you might detach. You might run away. Feeling your emotions and seeing the bigger picture can help you develop greater emotional connections there. Maybe for you, it is about trying to get the emotions out through communication. But of course, we want to consider the importance of also feeling your emotions rather than just rationalizing them or trying to make logical sense of them. It's still important to feel them. And the thing about it too is perhaps you would rather keep things lighthearted. But you know what? I want to say this. Whenever you support others emotionally, it's your intellectual way of viewing the emotional situation that can be really useful. So there is that. And then, furthermore, with emotional needs, media, puzzles, being creative, playing video games, right? I know for my mother has the moon in Gemini and she's always doing puzzles. And then my partner has the moon in Gemini and he plays video games. He enjoys unwinding by watching videos on YouTube. There's always just something to learn if you have the moon in Gemini. Mental stimulation may be important to you. Now, when it comes to the progressed lunar return, so around about the time you're 27, 28, this is where we might see you becoming somewhat more emotionally mature by coming to terms with your feelings a lot more. Rather than just going straight into the head, straight into your mind, you can come to terms with processing. And if even, for instance, you can be somewhat superficial, right? You can overlook the emotional part within that emotional situation. Your progressed lunar return can welcome that greater insight. It's like, oh, okay, I can see that. I can see that I missed the emotional part there. And then you can bring some sort of awareness to that. So yeah, this could be a part of your own emotional maturity with each Moon and Gemini individuals. Okay, let's now turn our attention to Moon in Cancer, folks. The Moon in Cancer. If the Moon is in Cancer in your chart, some of your emotional needs include family, home, and belonging. When these emotional needs are met, you feel secure, you feel comforted, and nurtured. You'll be cautious when developing an emotional attachment to someone, but when you do, there is a need to share how you feel. They could be like your person, right? And you can be vulnerable with those you love. You can also be very protective of those you love. Within your close relationships, you are often compassionate, sentimental, and kind-hearted. You'll never want to let your loved ones go. You'll never want to let them down either. However, if your emotional needs are not met, you can be moody, manipulative, and overpowering. You might sulk, you might go into hiding. Sharing your dissatisfaction and accepting things you cannot control can help you develop greater emotional connections. Still, your natural reactions show how things impact you deeply and personally. You are greatly moved. You may appreciate some quiet time to process your feelings, right? And during difficult times, you may turn to your close loved ones for support. Plus, thinking about other certain emotional needs, creating memories, family time, cooking, creating traditions. And when we think about the progressed lunar return for you, so around about the time that you're, coming to the end of your 20s, 27, 28, about that, the emotional maturity for you could be more about seeing, okay, how am I clinging to others? Because that could very well happen where you cling to other people for that emotional support, but there's maybe not so much of an ability to sort of turn that toward yourself. Or it could be that you're so concerned about other people's emotional needs, but you need to think about, well, what do you need? What do you need emotionally too? You can make space for both, right? All right, let's now focus on the moon in Leo. The moon in Leo, folks. If the moon is in Leo in your chart, some of your emotional needs include entertainment, attention, and being playful. When these emotional needs are met, you feel energetic, you feel appreciated, you're confident. You'll loudly and dramatically share your emotions with those you have developed an emotional attachment to. And you want to be seen when you do. And within your close relationships, you're often generous. My goodness, you are enthusiastic, you're lively, you're funny, you're entertaining. You may be extra dramatic, but it's so exciting. You may very well act like a hero toward your loved ones. However, if your emotional needs are not met, you can be arrogant, uncaring, and you can be stubborn. You might attempt to force others to listen to you, right? You must listen to me. Realizing not everything is about you and seeing things from a different perspective can maybe help you develop greater emotional connections there. And just in general, your natural reactions show how expressive and loud you can be. When you're excited, you're like this excited puppy. You need to get it out, right? You have some information, you need to share it. But whenever you're upset, it's too much. It's too much to handle. It can feel a lot. And when mistreated, it can feel like a massive attack to your ego. It can also feel like a massive attack to your heart, because when you care, like, you also love, right? There's that love involved. Your heart is in it. So yeah, if you feel like you're being mistreated, it's huge to you. It can feel like your loyalty is being disrespected. Still, your glow, your smile, your laugh, these things are infectious. You light up a room. And then to further add to some emotional needs, fun, drama, being creative. Now, in terms of the progressed lunar return, so around about the time you're 27, 28, the emotional maturity for you, I feel, is about perhaps recognizing that, yeah, not everything is about you in this way. That there's other situations happening outside of you that may not involve you at all. See, it could be that you can struggle with that sometimes, and maybe a part of that is because you care so much, because you love so much. So there can be this healthy separation, this healthy sense of, okay, these are my feelings. And then however that other person feels, it's more about them, right? And that's where it's not really about you stuff could come into the equation and can support you through that. Let's now turn to the moon in Virgo, folks. If you have the moon in Virgo, some of your emotional needs include cleanliness and routine. When these needs are met, you feel clear-headed, sympathetic. You're more willing to help. You're more willing to give your support, your assistance, to be of service. And you tend to analyze and compartmentalize your emotions as you keep busy. And you'll use discernment when developing an emotional attachment to someone. But then within your close relationships, you're often reliable, you're shrewd, you're gentle. You want to improve the lives of your loved ones. However, if your emotional needs are not met, you can be overly critical, cranky, irritable, like it's just the slightest thing that someone does just gets on your nerves. You might try to find fault where there is none. And so letting go of perfectionism and being sympathetic can maybe help you develop greater emotional connections there. Still, your natural reactions show how you can compartmentalize your emotions. You may think about their usage, how useful is this emotion? And you might not open up very easily either. You could struggle, with so asking for help could be a bit of a difficulty there. And you may also prefer to find practical solutions. And keeping busy could be used as a way to avoid anything unsettling. So this is where, kind of similar to having Moon in Gemini, it's bringing the emotions to the mind and making it all very intellectual, which it's not necessarily a bad thing. But if you're compartmentalizing to such a point where you're just avoiding, keeping busy, oh, I'll deal with that later. Oh, there's no point in thinking about that anyway. Oh, I'm just going to rationalize that. Then there can be challenges there with actually processing your emotions. Yes. So perhaps for you, there is something to be said about really tuning into the body there, feeling into the body. Plus, some other emotional needs include self-care, diet, pets. You know what, Moon and Virgo folks? Whenever you maybe slow down enough, where you're not so busy, active, doing things, when you slow down enough and you just settle in, maybe the emotions really start to come through and things come up. You can let your emotions out more there. Now, as for the progressed lunar return, which happens around about the time you're 27, 28, hey, maybe this is where noticing that the emotional maturity for you is found within this stuff that I just mentioned. It's about coming to terms with those times when you avoid anything unsettling and coming to terms with the compartmentalizing stuff and maybe creating space for, you know what, I'm not working today. I'm not doing anything today. I'm not going to be of service. I'm putting myself first, actually. Yeah. I'm thinking about filling my own cup, my own emotional needs. Moving on then to the moon in Libra, folks. Moon in Libra. So if the moon is in Libra in your chart, some of your emotional needs include mutual relationships and socializing. When these emotional needs are met, you feel attractive, comfortable, and satisfied. Whilst you can develop an emotional attachment to someone who is your equal, your partner, your companion, intellectual stimulation is just as important. And so whilst there is a part of this that is more concerned about, the relationship, the relating side of things, perhaps more on this feelings-based level, like from a feelings-based way, there's also the other side of, intellectually, how do we relate? And you'll typically share how you feel in a balanced, clear, and thoughtful way. Within your closer relationships, you're often loving, you're kind, you're fair, you'll be considerate of your loved ones and their needs. But here's the thing about this. You could very well put other people's needs before your own. And if you feel like your own emotional needs are not being met, you can be insincere, you can be unreasonable, you can be, well, uncooperative. You might interrogate others or give them the silent treatment. Being direct and admitting when you're angry or whenever you want something in the moment can help you develop greater emotional connections there. Still, when it comes to your natural reactions, well, they show how you need other people to turn to so you don't feel so alone. You might prefer to receive feedback to help you through things, and you'll usually be even-tempered. But you can also feel wobbly, especially whenever you're overwhelmed, right? Whenever the balance is off, it's like, this is too much for me. I'm overwhelmed. I can't do this. But then some other emotional needs, I think, for you could be some sugar from time to time, fashion, beauty, music, art, socializing there too, of course, like I was saying earlier. And when it comes to that progressed lunar return, so around about the time you're 27, 28, the emotional maturity for you, I feel really, I think it lies in being able to be somewhat more direct about what you need emotionally and not just sort of looking outside of yourself, maybe expecting others to be a mind reader, that, you know, there could be that stuff happening, or the people-pleasing stuff, the codependency stuff can occur here. So I feel like your emotional maturity lies in addressing this stuff. And then, yeah, being a bit more aware and in tune with your own identity. All right, let's now think about the moon in Scorpio. If the moon is in Scorpio in your chart, some of your emotional needs include emotional and sexual intimacy. And when these emotional needs are met, you feel passionate, empathetic, and safe. You don't open up easily to others, only to those you truly trust. And that can take a long time, this process. It can. But you see, when you do develop an emotional attachment to someone, you will passionately share how you feel while still being selective. Within your close relationships, you are often intense, you're devoted, you are protective. You will protect your loved ones at all costs. My goodness. However, if your emotional needs are not met, you can be destructive, you can be cruel, ruthless perhaps. You might seek possibly to get revenge. Cooling off and considering the consequences of your actions can help you develop greater emotional connections. I even just want to say here, right, with the revenge stuff aside, from your emotional needs not being met, just this could even suggest the self-destructive tendencies. Okay, so this is where it's so important to be able to address your emotions, even though, you know, your emotions may be very heavy and very intense. And I get it too, because with Moon and Scorpio, it could be that people have actually really hurt you. They've betrayed you, etc. And maybe for you, this is where it's so important to build relationships based on trust, based on honesty. I feel like that is really what is important there. It's to really consider the people in your life who you can trust with your most intimate sort of vulnerabilities. But then again, hey, you know what? It could be that there's fear of vulnerability. But then I think that also links back to the safety and the trust that needs to be established too, right? Vulnerability and trust, I feel, they must be built together. Still, your natural reactions show how intense you feel. You can go from experiencing ecstasy, just amazing, to feeling extreme sadness, loss, pain. You may also fixate on your emotions, or you may try to control them because of how deeply you feel. However, here's the thing. You transform when it comes to this stuff. You transform from the inside out. And then some of your emotional needs in this way is really linked to the intimacy, trust, and that security. But then as for the progressed lunar return for you, right? So around about the time you're 27, 28, I feel like your emotional maturity in this way is about coming to terms with the extremes, how you can really go to those extremes. And that, I've got to say, that can be a challenging thing. It can. I mean, we think about it too. The moon in Scorpio is in its fall. So yes, there could be more of these complex. So it's more complex basically here, because think about it. Blocked emotions, suppression, possibly trauma. These things are not, they're not black and white. It's not just, oh, well, this is the solution. Well done, you're healed. No. Yeah, it requires time, patience, effort. But I still think the progressed lunar return invites this new cycle, this new emotional cycle, which, you know what, it could very well turn more into empowerment, empowering yourself emotionally, self-mastery, coming to terms with your emotions, and being able to even manage them in a more healthy way, where you're not going to these extremes, or you're not turning to maybe self-destructive behaviors there. But yes, empowerment, even just using your emotions as a driving force to get you to where you need to go. Resilience, moon in Scorpio, emotional resilience. Moving on to the moon in Sagittarius. So if the moon is in Sagittarius in your chart, some of your emotional needs include adventure, exploration, meaning, discovery, higher learning. When these needs are met, you feel optimistic, happy, and aspirational. Idealistic and hopeful, you tend to deny sadness. But when you develop an emotional attachment to someone, you can be more honest about such feelings. You'll frankly share how you feel whilst considering the silver lining. And within your close relationships, you're often generous, you're spontaneous, you're inspiring. You can just say it like it is when you're really close with other people. And you'll lift your loved ones up. You'll want to see them succeed and, yeah, just be really successful. However, if your emotional needs are not met, you can be reckless, argumentative, you can be pretentious. You might come across as morally superior. Listening to others and using some tact can help you develop greater emotional connections. Yes, because the thing about you is being tactful may not be your strong suit there. Still, your natural reactions show how you refuse to be tamed, how you refuse to be fenced in. You might actually run away from anything restrictive. You need to feel free and independent. And you can also feel restless as you search for new and exciting adventures. So yes, like I was saying, some of your emotional needs could be about, being adventurous, going on adventures, going on trips, traveling, hiking, getting outdoors, educating yourself, taking on new courses. Yes, exploring the world, expanding your mind, being open to new opportunities and possibilities, Moon and Sagittarius folks. And then with the progressed lunar return happening around about the time you're 27, 28, the emotional maturity for you here could invite, well, perhaps a greater understanding of times when you deny sadness. Because that's what I was saying a moment ago, right? You could very well deny sadness and just focus on, okay, what's the next best thing? What's the next aspiration that I'm trying to reach? And maybe because of that, there's a lack of actually living in the now, living in the present. But then I also wonder, is it that you're running away from something from the past? And that something from the past is challenging and difficult to look at? Yeah, maybe your progressed lunar return will highlight that greater emotional maturity on your part to hold space for, yes, the part of you that sets out on adventures and you are aspirational, but to also hold space for the other part of you that recognizes, yes, there is a part of me that hurts, or I can feel sad, I can feel low from time to time. Let's now turn our attention to the moon in Capricorn. So if the moon is in Capricorn in your chart, some of your emotional needs include productivity, respect, integrity, and a sense of accomplishment. When these emotional needs are met, you feel accomplished, you feel successful, you feel secure. You'll be cautious and you'll take your time developing an emotional attachment to someone. And sharing your feelings can be difficult. See, you might fear that you will be rejected for sharing your feelings. And you may also fear that others will not stick by you. But when you do share, you appreciate it when people do show that loyalty. They do show that commitment. They're like, yeah, okay, I hear you. I'm going to stick by you here. And within your close relationships, you're useful, you're sensible, you're disciplined. My goodness, when you say you're going to do something, you will do it. You can be relied on. You can be depended upon. And you'll provide for your loved ones. My goodness, you're all about stability and security, long-lasting stability and security. So you'll be cautious. You'll be disciplined. You'll show dedication. However, if your emotional needs are not met, you can be demanding, cold, possibly rigid. You might look at things very negatively, being very pessimistic, finding it hard to see the good in things. Being patient and sharing how you feel can help you develop greater emotional connections. Still, your natural reactions show how much little time you have for feelings that seem impractical. Holding in your emotions, however, can lead to darker moods. And the thing about this too is you can be super hard on yourself. You can endure a lot. But you see, with time, things don't become so burdensome. I think with time, right, because Capricorn, it's all about the long haul. It's really about maturity, that growth. Yeah, things take time wherever Capricorn is. So for you, maybe you come to terms with, okay, how much are you carrying? How much? How can you lighten the load? How can you give some of that maybe to others? How can you welcome in assistance, support, help? How can you be honest about how you're really feeling? And with that in mind, I do get it that maybe for you, it's important to gradually build upon that emotional connection. You're not just going to bring down your walls for anybody. It takes a while to get through, kind of similar to that of Moon in Scorpio. So yes, it takes time, and that's okay. But then some emotional needs then as well. Again, like I said, respect, and then security. But purpose, I feel, is a big part of this. Feeling like you have a purpose. I think that is so important to you emotionally. Now, as for the progressed lunar return, around about the time you're 27, 28, I think this is where we notice your emotional maturity by, get this, this is the interesting thing, by you lightening up. Yes, because with Moon being in Capricorn, it can suggest that whenever you were younger, you may have perhaps behaved or felt like more of an adult, or there was greater responsibility there. Maybe having to look after certain people, taking on certain tasks or responsibilities and duties. And so as you age, it almost seems as if you can lighten the load there a bit. And you can come to terms with the whole stuff that I just said about, well, how much are you carrying? What is yours? What is yours to carry? What is yours to bear there? But also what isn't? There's something very karmic about this too. Plus, you may find that when it comes to your emotional maturity, that feeling that success, feeling accomplished, and feeling like you have a purpose, these things, they actually begin to sink in more. Because, hey, you can be so hard on yourself, so critical of yourself, feel a lot of the times like you're not doing enough, you're not working hard enough, you don't have enough success. But you'll notice with age, with maturity, that you do start to feel successful. Because ultimately, it's a feeling for you. All right, let's now think about the Moon in Aquarius. If the Moon is in Aquarius in your chart, some of your emotional needs include space and being an individual. When these emotional needs are met, you feel involved. You're caring, you're courteous. You can be so caring, my goodness, so caring, so friendly. You might possibly feel awkward when sharing your emotions because you often feel misunderstood, or maybe there's something about fearing that you will be misunderstood or thinking that you're going to be misunderstood. Maybe because times in the past when you have shared your emotions and your feelings, there was this kind of, or just people not really trying to see where you were coming from, or maybe just feeling really different or unusual to others. Developing an emotional attachment to someone can happen suddenly whilst you try to intellectualize how you feel, right? This is another moon sign that is going to be more intellectual when it comes to their feelings. So yes, for you, you could be like this, Moon in Aquarius, folks. Within your close relationships, you are often curious, you're thoughtful, you're inventive, you'll connect with loved ones in this super friendly way, in maybe this really cool way, just chilled, it's all good. And I even just want to mention that you can be objective, right? There can be this level of objectivity whenever you're listening to other people's feelings and emotions, which can actually help and support others, because you can have that slight detachment and you can give advice based on that detachment. And, you could very well make other people think in different ways. And if your emotional needs are not met, you can be rebellious, you can be tactless, you can be chaotic, you can just go, screw this, I'm done, right? You'll just distance yourself. You will distance yourself from others. sometimes without saying a single word. And being present and not feeling like you need to prove yourself can help you develop that greater emotional connection too. Still, your natural reactions show how you observe your feelings. You can talk about them in this more rational and cool-headed way. You can analyze your emotions too, which can, again, as I say, this stuff can be helpful. Similar to what I was saying with Moon in Gemini, Moon in Virgo, same kind of thing. That can be helpful. And you are loyal, you're intuitive, but you dislike it when things appear messy, or if there is this lack of self-control on the behalf of others, or if others maybe take out their emotional reactions on you. That's a big no, I'm not gonna put up with that. Now, I want to mention as well with this that this stuff doesn't mean that you don't have emotions or that you're not emotional. You can be emotional and you feel very deeply. I would argue that you care a lot, actually, especially about your loved ones. And so if there is any sort of issues with disagreements or people reacting in this emotionally or this irrational way, then that you can take that really personally. Yeah, and I also think that you try to be as understanding as possible. But what I'll even say about this is maybe you can reach a breaking point. If people really do push you that far, you can just snap and it's just like, oh, now you're going to hear it. Now you're going to hear, how I feel here. And I've been keeping this in for a long time and you should count yourself lucky. Okay. Oh my gosh. But still, you are very caring and supportive people. You're just not going to put up with disrespect. That's it. And to think about other emotional needs, media, space, possibly humanitarianism. Now, as for the progressed lunar return, so this happens around about the time you're 27, 28, perhaps the emotional maturity for you kind of, it lies in recognizing that you're not there to help everybody. Because I see this, people who have Moon in Aquarius, they can feel like it's their duty, right? Saturn, it's their duty, it's their responsibility to help everybody else, right? To support them emotionally. And yes, you may not be super how do we say, involved on this emotional level. You can still keep that slight objectivity, or you can be cool and rational about the whole thing. I mean, you can be great in a crisis. You can. I mean, my sister has Moon in Aquarius and she's amazing in a crisis. She can keep her cool. Doesn't mean though, again, it doesn't mean that you're not feeling a type of way on the inside, though. I just want to say that. But still, you can be like this, right? You can sort of act as this figure who is there with your own rational views or your objective views, and people may really find that to be useful. But yes, the emotional maturity may be to step back a bit, to be able to see, oh, this person's maybe depending on this too much. And maybe as well, the emotional maturity lies in you opening up. You actually talking about how you feel, because that could be a big thing that you keep a lot in, actually. Yeah, that you keep so much within, and you may think, oh, well, nobody else will understand me. Nobody's going to get where I'm coming from. But then that starts to build and build and build. And then this is where we can see here chaotic behaviors, unexpected stuff occurring, the tornado, that tornado stuff with Moon in Aquarius and just Aquarius in general. And people do not see it coming. Okay, let's then finally move on to the Moon in Pisces. The Moon in Pisces, lastly. If you have the moon in Pisces, some of your emotional needs include creativity, privacy, and your alone time. Maybe just being very artistic, being creative behind the scenes, going on retreats. When these needs are met, you feel peaceful, you're sweet, you're sympathetic, you're empathetic, you're loving. It can be easy for you to develop an emotional attachment to someone. And you'll often be so sensitive to other people's emotions that you forget about your own. I mean, you are the people who will give to charity, will volunteer, will help the homeless. But you see, with the being very sensitive toward other people's emotions and their needs, boundaries can help you with this. Still, within your close relationships, you're often caring, you're loving, you're understanding. You'll show empathy toward your loved ones. However, if your emotional needs are not met, you can be moody. You can be paranoid. You can be fearful. You might play the victim or the martyr, or you could very well lash out at others. Lash out. It's just like you see red, and it's hard to control your feelings in that moment. Letting others know what you need and being a bit more realistic, a bit more grounded, right, more rooted in reality, can help you develop greater emotional connections there. And I think a lot of this is tied to the boundary stuff that I previously mentioned. Still, your natural reactions show how you take everything in. You can absorb others' emotions like a sponge. You often become overwhelmed as well by your everyday life, by your tasks, by your responsibilities. It's like, oh, it's too much. And so for you, a part of this, I think, is recognizing that you can separate yourself from others, distance yourself from others, you can protect. Having that level of emotional protection to help you. And also, if you do feel yourself becoming so overwhelmed by everyday life, this is where perhaps it's important to reach out for help, to see, who can assist you in this way, or to be able to get your alone time. Have your alone time, recharge, say what you need. You can sense what other people are going through still. You can sense that. But you see, I also think that it's important not to do that to such an extent that you're not thinking also about what you need, what you're going through, because there could be things that are happening on more of an emotional level for you, but because you're so concerned about others, there's a lack of regulating your own emotions. And then it can be difficult to identify how you actually feel because you're so merged with other people. Still, some other sort of emotional needs here could be bathing, right? Taking a nice bath, a nice shower, self-care, music as well. Music, tapping into your imagination, being artistic, photography, film, movies, anything just to recharge, to help you come back to center. And then with the progressed lunar return happening around about the time you're 27, 28, your emotional maturity will be so much, I think, about that ability to go, hey, I need this. Even to be able to communicate at times what you need. Because do you know what? This could be where a challenge lies. A challenge of not communicating what you need, not communicating a boundary, not communicating some type of alone time that is required for you. Perhaps out of fear, right? Out of fear of upsetting other people, And then the other thing about this is perhaps this is kind of what you're used to. Okay, you're used to sort of being that person who's submissive, or okay, whatever you need, right? So this is a process. It's a process of coming to terms with, okay, other people have their stuff, but this is also about you regulating your own emotions too. And yeah, that could take time. I don't think that this is a super easy fix, black and white thing. And possibly too, there is a level of sort of that trust and that emotional connection where others hear you, right? Maybe that is where it's really important too. So for instance, if you do set this healthy emotional boundary and that is disrespected, right? Then my goodness, this is where there can be more challenges, and it's about still being able to be firm in, right? Well, that's your stuff. You don't respect my emotional boundary, okay? I'm still sticking with what I'm feeling here. You feel how you feel. I'm also going to feel how I feel. Okay. So, everyone, this has been the moon signs talking about how you feel and emotionally attached. Again, if you wish to join the Patreon, you can do so. The link is below. Thank you so much to my patrons over at Patreon for all of your support. I appreciate you. And thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for being here. I really hope that you find this video to be helpful. And if you would like to book a reading with me, you can do so by going to hannahselsewhere.com. And if you really enjoyed today's video, you can always buy me a coffee. Of course, no pressure though. It's just to let you know how to support the channel, how to support Hannah's Elsewhere. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And again, make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure to like the video if you did like it. And comment again, where is the moon in your chart? And with that, I will talk to you all in the next video. Bye!